With Metro by T-Mobile, your hard-earned money goes further. This tax season, there's zero fees to switch. Enjoy Metro's lowest price, just $25 a line for 4 lines. Plus, get 4 free Samsung Galaxy phones when you switch. Now that's the best deal in wireless. Metro by T-Mobile, empowering you to rule your day. All lines lose promo rate if any deactivates. No fees on select phones. Limit 1 per line with eligible port. Excludes sales tax. Limited time offer. Additional terms apply. See metrobytmobile.com.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Don't miss our weekend special. Save $1,000 on our most popular smart bed and adjustable base. Plus special financing. Ends Monday. Special financing subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See store for details.
I think that the main thing that was different on the Wonderland Trail for me personally was that when I talked to other people on the trail, I really felt like a lot of people were in the same place and experiencing some of the same things that I was.
Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mason. It might sound a little bit different today. I'm actually recording remotely. Hopefully this is more of a common thing that we'll be recording remotely because we're actually doing adventures. The show's called Adventure Sports Podcast, but really anyone that listens to the show knows that it's more about adventure stories. It's about the stories that we can tell through doing adventure sports. A great example is 2 weekends ago, I went on a bike race, or we went to a bike race, me and some friends, and we took along a friend that had never done anything like this, kind of talked him into it, and we went camping the night before, and it was just an awesome time, but there were different options to the race, so you could cut off some time, some mileage, you could cut off some difficulty of the terrain if you wanted to, but Jordan, being who he is, decided to go for the absolute longest route possible and the most difficult route possible, where there was 1/10 of all the people at the race were actually signed up for that part. And so we knew that we were in for it when there were only a handful of us at the start line. And when we finished that race, we were the dead last people to finish in the entire event. The event had already packed up. 3 people waiting on us just as the last people to make sure we weren't dead or they wouldn't have to call the cops or something to find us. And they told us, hey, we were worried about y'all. But I say all this to say we had such a good time. It was so much fun. We stopped. We just played around. We were just out in the woods having a great time, took a bunch of wrong turns, so much mishap, so much misadventure, honestly. Totally underprepared in so many ways, but in a lot of ways, that's exactly what we went out there for. We weren't trying to win. We weren't trying to do anything but have a really good time and to just enjoy time outside and outdoors. And we were totally last. The food was cold, but we were able to help the folks pack up and get ready for the next race. And it was a really great time. And I think that this show and Christine's story today is kind of that vibe. It isn't trying to get the fastest known time up, Mount Everest or doing the biggest and craziest things ever. It is setting your sights on those big, crazy goals, but it's not saying, if I don't get that, I am nothing. Christine's story is one of challenging herself, of one of doing these huge tasks as someone who doesn't have a background in it, specifically in the world of backpacking, but finding her way, taking on the challenges, and eventually finding this balance where she loves what she does and learning about who she is and where she wants to be, but giving a lot of not failures, but a lot of iterations of figuring that out. And so her story and the book that came out along with her story of her coming of age is called Alone in Wonderland. You can find it at aloneinwonderland.com. But I hope you enjoyed the story. It's a little bit meandering. It's a little bit sauntering, if you will, out in the woods. But that's kind of what we're going after today. And I hope you enjoy her story. It's about grief. It's about love. It's about challenging yourself. It's about everything that life really consists of, that ultimately all happen on an adventure as well. So I hope you enjoy our conversation. And without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Christine, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Mason?
Doing well. So I always ask this first, where are you coming from today?
I am in Denver, Colorado.
Oh, cool. Is that home for you?
It is now. I recently sold my van and moved into a real sticks and bricks place.
How does it feel?
It's good and scary and amazing and sad all at the same time.
You know, we haven't even talked about this. We just kind of jumped on the phone, but you and I have known each other. Or, I started following you after we met each other in Yosemite back in 2014. Was that 2014?
Yeah.
Holy cow. And we lived in, Camp Curry Village is what it was called. In the housing.
On Frat Row.
Frat Row, yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh. Holy cow. Rough area.
I think I got there at the right time, though. I got there late in the season, so the party atmosphere had chilled out a little, I think.
Yes, I pulled into the valley, Yosemite Valley. It was still snowing in May, up in the, just 1,000 feet above the valley. You could see it up kind of like on Washington Column and up on the mountain or up on the valley edges, but it was still cold, and so before the real summer had started. But I remember we got to know each other. We lived across each other from just kind of across. It's like these military-style tents, everyone that's listening, and you just, you get to know people because it's pretty open lifestyle. Hippie living, it was awesome. And the story I remember about you is...
Oh, no.
It was a good thing. You set off to climb Mount Whitney.
Uh-huh.
And, it's like, hey, I'm going to go climb Mount Whitney. We talked a few times, and I was like, sweet, I got to work. We worked 6 days a week there, which sucked because you only had one day to explore, and really, you wanted to do that all the time. It's Yosemite. And you were gone a few days, and you came back, and you just had this glow about you, this grin on your face, and you had done it. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, that's a hilarious retelling perspective, though.
But you said it was tough. You said you had gone with someone else that either quit, that just wasn't there for the right reasons, and you went and did it alone, and you came down, and you were just so energized and pumped. And I actually went and did one of my first backpacking trips probably a couple weekends later, just like, all right, Christine I've got to get some experiences in before this summer ends. And I just remember that about you.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was definitely the hardest thing I had ever done in my life up to that point, and probably still top 10 hardest things I've ever done. That
is wild. And I don't mean to I typically don't just jump into a story like that, but you this is a little unique. We've known each other a little bit, but gosh, that had to be just an incredible experience. I've never done it. I was never able to get to Mount Whitney.
Yeah, definitely recommend. It's 22 miles round trip. And I really didn't know anything about it. And I had just moved to the valley, and a girl that I worked with went and hiked it probably my first week at the job. And she came back and told me, hey, I hiked Mount Whitney. It was so fun. And I was like, that sounds cool. And I asked her a couple questions. How hard is it? And she said, not that hard. And I didn't know at the time that she is one of these super hiker, just very, she's fast and she's strong and really fit. And I was none of those things. And so I didn't realize when she told me that it was not that hard, that it actually was really hard, and that she was just better at hiking than I was. So yeah, I got together with someone else I had just met, and I was like, hey, let's do this. And we got the permits and we drove out there, and he was not prepared. Not that I was prepared. We were both unprepared. But I ended up leaving him around mile 5 because he was getting altitude sickness and just wasn't feeling super great. And so we had all my backpacking gear with us, even though we were only planning to be there for a day. Because I was like, I'm going to carry my backpacking gear and practice hiking with 40 pounds on my back.
Up the highest mountain in the contiguous U.S.
Do not recommend that idea. But But it was good. We had all my stuff. And so we set up the tent and sleeping bag and stuff. And he slept while I hiked the rest of the way up and then came back down. And then I met him back at mile 5 and we walked out together. But it took me 24 hours from car to car, which hopefully won't take other people who are more experienced that long. But it was something I needed to do to prove to myself because I was getting ready to hike the AT. That's actually why I moved to Yosemite, was to get some hiking experience and hang out with other people in the outdoor community. And I didn't really have much hiking experience at all. And so when I got on Mount Whitney and I realized I'd kind of gotten myself into a fix, I thought, I have to do this. I have to finish this to prove that I can to myself, because I'm about to go out and hike, thousands of miles on the Appalachian Trail. That's what I was planning on doing. And so I felt like if I quit on Mount Whitney, then how would I know that I was capable of going out on the Appalachian Trail just a few months later?
Did it help?
It did, definitely. And it's something I still look back on when I'm doing something difficult. Like I ran rim to rim in the Grand Canyon last year. And, when I was close to the end and you're climbing up out of the canyon and I was just thinking like, this is so hard. Like, am I ever going to make it? And I thought, if I could make it to the top of Mount Whitney, like I can finish this day,
That is awesome. That is so cool, just to have the experience, to test yourself initially, knowing a much larger test is coming. But, I really didn't know those plans at the time, but I just remember that. And you getting, and it was just, a day or two had gone by and I saw you again. And we had all just been, groveling around, doing our little jobs, working in the campground. And you're just like this changed person, like Moses up at Mount Sinai coming down. It was like, wow. Tell us your wisdom, Christine. It was awesome.
I think that glow was a sunburn, right? Because you get a lot of sun exposure at 14,000 feet.
Skin cancer grows on you up there. It's just brutal, the UV rays. But so really that folks, that's really our introduction to each other, and really started following you. We all moved out of the valley for whatever reason. I actually left the valley and got married. Left the valley, met my girlfriend in Vegas, and we eloped right then and there, and then moved to Denver for 6 years. Well, if you don't mind, this is definitely not typical to jump right into something like that, but I'd love to know a little bit about, before we get into the AT and what happened after that, just kind of where you grew up. Because you mentioned something in another interview I listened to, is that you're from a family of indoorsy people, which I've never really heard someone describe their family like that. And I'd love to hear what was growing up like, and where did you grow up?
Yeah, totally. My dad was in the military, so we moved around quite a bit. I actually lived several years in Florida as a child and then moved to Northern California, just north of San Francisco, for high school. And then after I finished school, my family was moving to Arkansas and I was starting college as a 17-year-old. So it seemed prudent to stay living at home for a little while. And so I moved to Arkansas and went to college there. But I would say my parents were just super focused on academic achievement, and it was something I excelled at from a really young age. And so, I did the thing I was good at and I got a lot of praise for it. And so it was really easy to just kind of stay in that cycle. And running and sports and PE and all of those things were just abject torture to me. And so I remember, even as young as 6, 7 years old, I remember being the only kid who couldn't catch anyone playing tag, and the only person when my class was playing soccer at recess that was just 20 or 30 feet behind everybody else. And then by the time they got turned around and were running the other way, I couldn't even get turned around and catch up to them as they were passing me by. So, my parents were big readers and not into outdoorsy stuff. And I had kind of negative experiences with lots of different physical activities as a kid. And so it just kind of was off my radar at a certain point. I had things that I enjoyed and was good at, and it didn't seem important to me to try to do something that was so hard.
Until later in life.
Yeah. I didn't really discover hiking until I was in my 20s. And it was a few times other people said hey, let's go hike this or that. And I had a few pretty bad experiences going out with friends and hiking. And then I kind of just was like putting that in the brain bank of like, okay, hiking's not really my thing. And then I guess right after college, I happened upon a blog about the AT online while I was feeling a bit adrift, having just graduated, and I was working this job in health insurance, and I didn't really know what I was planning on doing with my life, and had gotten to a point where goals weren't being set for me anymore. Because I think, from a young age in school, it's always get good grades and go to the next thing, and then go to college and figure out a major. And so you kind of have these like pre-written rules that you're following along. And then when you graduate from college, there's just sort of an abyss that happens after that. And I kind of found myself there treading water, feeling lost. And then I found this blog about the AT, and it seemed like a lot of people who were getting into thru hiking and blogging about it were talking about that feeling of lost, just not knowing what you're doing. And I really identified with that. And it looked like these people had that same problem I had. And then they found a solution, and it was the Appalachian Trail. And I thought maybe that solution would work for me too.
You mentioned, I've heard you also mention that people, they go hiking. It's typically not just to hike. There's something else going on. And that seems like it was the case for you. Could you talk about that? What it was for you that made you want to get out there?
Definitely. Yeah. I think lots of people who enjoy hiking go on day hikes, but to commit to something like a big thru hike, there's got to be a bigger reason than just like I enjoy hiking. And I think that I had that feeling of loss, and also a feeling of like I was just not sure who I was. And I thought this could be like the adventure of a lifetime. I'm in my early 20s, and I just want to figure out who I am. And I thought maybe going out and kind of simplifying life and spending time away from all the people who I had built my life around, to just really be able to inquire within. Sometimes it helps to shock the system and go somewhere where you don't know anyone and do something that you don't know how to do. And that helps you figure out like what you're really capable of. I think that was a big part of it for me, was kind of pushing that boundary of like, this is something I know that is hard because I've been on a couple of hikes and it's hard. But it's something I think I'm capable of, but it's going to be a lot of work. And so it was a level of wanting to get to know something about myself, and also push and test myself in a way that I had never done before.
So to get ready for the AT, you take this job in Yosemite Valley, have all these incredible experiences, and then the real test came. As it got closer, when were you kind of getting ready or going on your Appalachian Trail experience? What was that like? You know what I'm saying? Like, you went to Yosemite, it finished in this fall, and then the next spring you were going to start the AT?
Yeah, so I actually moved to Yosemite in August of 2014, and I stayed there until January. So I was there through most of the winter
season.
Yeah, because the only reason I picked Yosemite is because my lease was going to be up at the place I was staying in Arkansas. And I thought, I don't really want to sign a 6-month lease. So I Googled what kind of jobs provide housing. And the first thing that came up was national parks. And I was like, oh, perfect. Like, that's exactly in line with what I'm doing. Like, sounds great. So I applied for a job in Yosemite. It's pretty easy to get a job there at the end of the season, because they're still busy for another couple of months after all the people who are there working summer jobs leave. And so I applied, got a job right away, and then showed up August 11th, and then was there through January. And then I was planning on starting the AT on March 20th. So I left the first week of January, drove back to Arkansas to my parents' place. And I was spending about 6 to 8 weeks kind of just getting everything ready for the AT. So I was packing boxes with food. I was buying last minute gear things, just spending time with my parents, which was nice. And then kind of helping them get ready for me to be gone, because they were going to be shipping everything and taking care of my logistics a little bit. So I was just doing all the prep work. But one of the things that I say about the AT is I did a lot of preparing when it came to logistics. I did a lot of preparing when it came to the mentality of understanding I was going to do something difficult. But I didn't do a lot of preparing when it came to hiking. Other than hiking Mount Whitney, that was pretty much it. I went on a couple other day hikes in Yosemite when I was there. And then I didn't hike in Arkansas before I left because it was too cold. And so I just really didn't physically prepare a whole lot. But one of the things that's really great about long distance hiking is you have plenty of time to like get in shape as you go. So when I stepped on the trail at the end of March, I probably was not as prepared as I should have been, but I just took it really easy for the first couple weeks of like 7, 8, 9 mile days, and getting used to carrying my backpack because I really didn't have much experience with that, and just getting used to what it feels like to like walk for pretty much your only activity during the day.
What was that like? What did it feel like to actually be out there after all this preparation? As far as thinking about it so long, maybe not the actual hiking, but and then having it on your back, having all the gear and stepping on the trail saying, this is my life now. What did that feel like?
There was definitely an aspect of like very surreal, like, okay, this is the thing I've been planning to do for, it was over a year that I had decided was going to do that. And so to get out there and like put the backpack on for the first time and you're like, oh, this is really heavy. And the approach trail for the AT is goes from Amicalola State Falls Park. And the first section of it is just a huge staircase that follows up alongside a waterfall. And I'm like grueling my way up this staircase, and it's humid and there's water splashing from the waterfall. And, I'm looking around and there's tons of people day hiking and just like going up to the falls because it's a state park. And I'm like looking at all of them. And then I'm thinking about myself just like sweating with this backpack on. And I'm like, I look disgusting. And like, these people are probably thinking that girl's never going to make it.
Right. This is like 300 yards in.
I definitely had like an, what have I gotten myself into moment. But then once I was past that first stretch of like stairs, then there's a little bit of a flat section. I was like, okay, I can do this. I made it up that staircase. I climbed Mount Whitney. Like, I can hike, this trail.
Wow. That is too cool. I mean, I've done that. I've done the part of the AT from the southern terminus to like the North Carolina border.
Uh-huh.
And I did it in winter on Christmas break from college, and it sucked. It was my only backpacking experience at the time, and my first experience, let's put it that way. And I thought the same thing. That first climb up that waterfall, I was like, people do this for 2,600 miles. This is ridiculous. I can totally feel like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? So ultimately, you didn't complete the trail, but you did 25% or so, quite a bit of the trail. What ultimately took you off?
I started at the end of March. A few days after I got on the trail, I was only probably about 30 miles in. My mom died. She had been sick with cancer, but we weren't expecting her to die at that time. And so I actually left the trail then for 10 days. I went home and we had the memorial service, and I saw all the family and, spent some time with my dad. And when I got the call, I thought, oh, this is the end of this. Like, I've been out here for 3 days and my trip is over. And I was pretty upset about that, but I thought, I have familial obligations. I need to go home and deal with this now. And so I was prepared for that to be the end of my trip. But then I got home and some people in my family asked me, when are you going back out on the trail? And at first I was kind of offended by the question. I thought, how could I do that? That's not like the right thing to do. But after just a few days of spending time with my dad, I realized like me being there wasn't helping him at all. And I didn't feel like I needed to be there for my own sake. I felt like I kind of needed to get back. Like, there was a reason I was going out on the AT to begin with. And that reason didn't just disappear because my mom died. And so I ended up going back out and hiking from where I had left off to Parisburg, Virginia. And I got off the trail just a little after that. So it was about 650 miles. And when I left the trail and came back, I told myself, like, the goal is no longer, it's not about making it to Maine anymore. It became more about just trying to do the soul searching and find the answers to the questions I had gone out there for. And I thought, when I feel like I've finished what I came here for, then I'll go home. And so I had a moment in Parisburg, Virginia, where I thought, do I still need to be here? And I actually hiked about, I think, 14 miles out of Parisburg that day. And I got picked up from a campsite just the next day out of Parisburg. So when I was in Parisburg, I thought maybe it's time to go home. And throughout that day, I thought about it and I decided that it was time. So I called a friend who arranged a ride for me.
Worried about mom or dad falling? The Symphony Medical Alert System from CVS Health helps make their home safer, even if you can't be there. Symphony works with voice activation or a care button they can opt to wear, along with smart sensors for coverage around the home. With 24/7 emergency response and an app to tie it all together, you can monitor your loved one's well-being for enhanced peace of mind. Terms and conditions apply. Learn more about Symphony at cvs.com/symphony or find it at your nearest CVS Health Hub.
In a noisy, stressful world, quiet is the most valuable commodity. And the cabin of every Lincoln vehicle is designed with this principle in mind. Should you desire a little more melody, our available Revel audio system will not disappoint. The very same engineering that makes for a whisper-quiet interior provides a studio-like setting in which to rock out to your music, finding harmony all around you. That's the power of Sanctuary. And that's Lincoln.
Revel and the Revel logo are trademarks of Harman International Industries, registered in the United States and other countries.
That's heavy. That's tough. We've had a lot of people on this show that haven't completed the full whatever thru-hike or trail or whatever it is for them, the coast to coast ride. And we've heard a lot of folks say they've done a lot, completed other things, but for some reason the trail it's not about doing what everyone says you're supposed to do. It's really about you're out there for the reasons you're out there for. And if you feel like those things get resolved or you get those answers you're looking for, then the trail has done its job. The trail has served its purpose, and you have experienced it. We've had so many people that said, I got to this point on the route where I felt at peace, that I felt I found what I was looking for, essentially. And there's no, it's arbitrary if you make it to the end or not in that sense.
Totally. I mean, I went out there to prove something to myself about who I was and what I was capable of. And I didn't need to hike 2,186 miles to get that. I got to 650 and I thought, I've done something really difficult. And I feel very sure of who I am in this experience that I don't need to keep walking.
So from that point, that's such a big goal in so many people's lives, doing a thru-hike or an adventure in general. It can be just consume you, like you said, for a year. What filled that void after getting off the Appalachian Trail, and where did your life start to go from there?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think a lot of people talk about post-trail depression because we get this, we get this sense of who we are and what life is about when we're on the trail. And, a lot of people come off very minimalist. And, I just really realized the things I didn't need and what was important. And all of those things were true, definitely, for me. I came back after the AT. I went back to my dad's place and I actually spent 3 months there with him. And we really just hung out every day and watched TV together and bonded in a way. And I was 25 years old. Yeah, it was really nice to have the freedom to do that, honestly. Because at my age, I think a lot of women in their teenage years and early 20s, you kind of pull away from your parents and you want to establish your own identity. And there's a little bit of pushing away that we do to the people who are closest to us because we want to prove we don't need them in the way that we did as children. And it was a good opportunity for me to go then kind of mend that relationship with my dad. And now we don't have my mom anymore. And she was always kind of the center of our family, I felt. And so for us to build our own relationship without her there, I think it was a nice experience. And I was really happy that I had the time to do that. And that was, the time I would have been on the trail if I had stayed. So for me, giving up that time on the trail to do that with my dad was really great. But then after a while, I was like, okay, I have to go now. So I moved to Denver at that point in 2016. Or I guess that was the end of 2015. And I was like, okay, I took a year off. I worked this job in the national park. I need to get my resume back together now that I've taken all these detours. And so I got a job and was living in a condo and did the kind of just like regular thing for a while. And I started to get that same feeling of just like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, and feeling very antsy and kind of trapped by the lifestyle that I had built in Denver. And so I took a job opportunity in Arizona, and shortly thereafter, I purchased my first van. And then very quickly after purchasing the van, I quit my job and moved into the van, which was not built at all. It was just a van. And I started living in it. And so that was in the spring of 2018. And I've lived full time in a van since then until just about a month ago.
Oh my gosh. Full time in the van for until a month ago. We're catching you at a really interesting time then. So I remember seeing your posts about the van, building it out. You would write essentially in your posts, you almost like just talking about things in your life, and it wasn't, just details about like the van is, this old and has this many miles. It was just like the why of everything. And it was just very interesting to read that stuff. And it was cool to see those updates from you. Tell us about van life. What did you do during those few years? And what kind of, did it fulfill you, or did it still leave some sort of void?
I'm still working through some of those feelings. Yeah. But definitely I was feeling a little bit of the same thing I felt about the AT. And so I think I was looking for another kind of escape from the reality I had built. And I was looking for a way to get out and explore and do a little bit more searching within myself. And so when I bought the first van, I took it kind of like the big trip that first year was like up through California into Oregon and Washington. And I had never been to the Pacific Northwest before. So I wanted to just go up there, and I'd heard how great Oregon was. And so I was just like, I'm going to go explore. And I had a few issues, like one of which was I didn't really know what I was trying to accomplish. I was just wandering. And so I spent a lot of time alone, and I spent a lot of time like feeling very alone. I was very much like in my feels about lack of community and lack of partnership. And, my dating life had been kind of a mess. And so this was a bit of a like run away from that situation. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll like meet a cool van person and we'll like hang out and do van things together. But you really have to look for those connections. And I wasn't doing that in any way. I was just like hoping it would happen to me magically.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Just like anything in life.
Yeah. There's, I quote made a friend the other day, and it was legitimately looking up this hashtag on Instagram, finding someone with the same interest in our area, and just reaching out to them like, hey, we should be friends. And they're like, I agree. Let's meet together. And it was, is this really what friendship is now? And we're both laughing about it, because that's just kind of how you have to do it almost when you become an adult, it feels like.
Yeah. And I feel like, COVID obviously has exacerbated that, but living in a van, it was like, it's really easy when it's like a turtle shell. Like you can just go from place to place and then crawl into your shell and like be alone. And it's really easy to not let people in.
Wow.
And so I had gone up through California. I spent probably 4 or 5 weeks in Portland, and I just kind of was having a hard time leaving Portland. Even though I wasn't having a good time, I felt like, oh, if I'm going to go somewhere else, I need to like do something when I get there. And so I was feeling this, like, where should I go? What should I be doing? I had a lot of questions. And then a good friend of mine, actually the same person who told me Mount Whitney was not that hard, she called and said, hey, I'm going to Mount Rainier to do a day hike. Do you want to come? And I said,
it's not that hard.
Yeah. She said, oh, it's not that hard. No. We weren't summiting Mount Rainier. So
okay. I hear it's tough.
So I said, yes, please. Thank you. Thank you for calling me and like giving me some out to like go do something. And so we met at Mount Rainier a couple days later, and we hiked just like a couple miles day hike. And on that hike, we crossed paths with the Wonderland Trail. And I thought, oh, I've heard of that, because I belong to all these hiking groups on Facebook, and I'm sure somebody's mentioned it on there. So I thought, let me Google that really quick. And I like Googled, and it's like 100-mile trail around Mount Rainier. And I was like, I'm doing that. That's what I'm going to do. So I went to Seattle with her to visit one of her friends for a day or two, and I got food and stuff ready to go. And I went and applied for a walk-up permit for Mount Rainier to do the Wonderland Trail, not to summit Mount Rainier. And so that was that was about 6 months into van life. And I think at that point I was feeling pretty disenchanted with the whole van experience because I thought it was going to be some kind of answer to life's questions and this like great carefree way to travel and have fun and meet people. And I just like wasn't having any of those experiences. And so when I saw the opportunity to do a backpacking trip, I thought, maybe that is the thing that I'm really needing, because that on the AT is what helped me get to this point now, right? It was something that had been the answer in the past, and I saw it and I thought, oh, maybe backpacking is the answer again. Maybe I messed up with this whole van life thing, and what I really should be doing is backpacking.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it felt a little like reaching in a bunch of different directions, but I saw something familiar there that had been comfort to me in the past.
Tell us about doing the Wonderland Trail, because it's, it's a little shorter than the AT. It's a permitted trail, so there's more of this kind of unique, more of a lone experience, and it's obviously completely unbelievably stunning. What was the experience of hiking that trail around Mount Rainier?
It was one of the best hiking experiences I've had. I would highly, highly recommend to anyone who can get a permit to do the Wonderland Trail. It is very heavily permitted. There's limited camping. And so there aren't the same crowds that you experience on a trail like the AT. It's very much like these 5 people are camping at this campsite tonight. So those are the 5 people you might see today while you're hiking, which is it's a cool experience. It's nice to be out, and there's times that you're walking alone and you really do feel alone. And that's not an experience I got much on the AT. But it is also, there's comfort in knowing like you're in a national park, there are rangers out and about, there are other people hiking, even if you don't see them that day, you kind of know these campsites are all booked. So there's definitely at least 5 people out here.
5 other people to rely on. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
So because your book, we haven't talked about your book yet, but it's called Alone in Wonderland. Was there something different about that experience of that 90-something mile trail around Mount Rainier that was just different than the other experiences you've had? Did you learn something unique, or was it just this combination of points you were in life why it really gripped you?
I think that the main thing that was different on the Wonderland Trail for me personally was that when I talked to other people on the trail, I really felt like a lot of people were in the same place and experiencing some of the same things that I was. And I think on the AT, that was also true, but I wasn't processing it that way because I had just lost my mom. And so I was dealing very much with like that grief and that experience. And I didn't meet a whole lot of other people on the AT who I felt like understood what I was going through. But I was in such a different place in my life when I got on the Wonderland Trail. The thing that I was dealing with was this feeling of isolation and a feeling of like seeking connection with other people, but also with the earth and with myself as a hiker and who I was. And I was really searching for something that like only the trail can give you. And I think the other people that I met there, I talked to a lot of other people on my hike, and a lot of them I felt like were feeling a lot of the same feelings. And one of the things that's really nice about being in a community, especially like the backpacking community, when you're out on a long trail, is there's a level of vulnerability just from being out, unprotected with nothing but your pack and sleeping in the woods and meeting strangers. And the community that we have out there allows for a level of vulnerability that we don't often display in our regular lives. And so you're able to walk up to people and talk about like real stuff in a way that we just don't usually do. And so I think what kind of inspired me to write the book was the conversations I had on the trail along the way and just the openness of the other hikers. And I realized, these things that are going through my head all day, every day that are making me like wonder what my purpose is and who I am and these doubts that I'm experiencing and the isolation. Like, I'm not the only person experiencing those things.
Did you feel like you were before that?
I think we all have a sense of like our unique struggle. Like, we all think the things that are hard in our lives are personally ours. And I definitely was experiencing that before I got on the trail. I was feeling like, why doesn't anyone want to be around me? Why am I alone? Why can't I find somebody to like do these things with? And I think like a lot of us are experiencing those feelings and we don't talk about them. And so I really wanted to write about my inner experience and then also my experience on the trail and how I came to terms with the idea that like I'm not the only person experiencing these feelings.
I don't know who said it, but there's this it might have been Plato or Aristotle. It's one of those old dudes. And they were saying, if we knew if everyone they were convinced that if everyone was in a circle and put their problems and their struggles and everything like before their feet to trade with someone else in the circle, he said, I'm convinced everyone would look around and say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize all of that was going on with them. I'll just happily take my struggles back and deal with them. Because you're like, you really do think you are the only person. We're going through, this season with challenges, just like every season, but there's these things that I didn't foresee with moving here that were going to be challenging. And the moment you start talking to someone else about it, the moment you realize, oh, they're experiencing the exact same thing. Oh, they are too. Oh, they are too. Really, no one is not experiencing it, but it's just so easy to feel alone in some of these struggles,
Yeah. And we have this shame around admitting that we have fear and doubt and problems, and we want to like hide all that and keep it covered up. But as soon as you say it out loud, like there's such a freedom that comes with like showing your wounds and like the vulnerability we think of as a weakness, but it's such a strength to just say like, this is what's going on in my head and it's making me feel like a crazy person. And like,
right.
Everyone else gets it. I've never had somebody say to me, I can't believe you're thinking that. That's silly.
Right. Why do you think going outdoors for you or going hiking or being out there it draws it out? Is it a comfort in some way? Like what is it for you that draws you outdoors?
I think it's the reality of it. Like we live in these houses and we go to these jobs and we do all these things that like aren't real in a way. They're just things that we do in our culture. And when you go outside, there's such a sense of like, this is where my body was meant to be. Like, this is where my heart is meant to be. Like, I can see other beings, trees and like little animals and things that are like living their truest life. And like, I want to be out there living my truest life also.
It's real. It's like everything out there is doing exactly what it was supposed to do or what it is supposed to do. And when you're out there, you're kind of doing that too. You feel like you're closer to it at least.
Yeah. And not like the supposed to like obligations, but like supposed to just like purpose.
Right. What else can you tell folks about the book? What can they expect reading it? And also where can they find it?
Yeah. So it is a memoir of my hike on the Wonderland Trail, but it is also kind of a narrative of like the 10 years leading up to it. And it's a personal story, but I think that one of the main things I wanted to do with writing it was to share my personal story because it is so much the same as everyone else's personal story. So I think one of the best things I've heard feedback-wise about the book is just how much people relate and how much reading it they're thinking like, oh, I think that too. Oh, that's me too. And that's been such a great experience. So I hope that everyone who reads it sees a little bit of themselves in the story and to get the book, it is available on aloneinwonderland.com, which is my personal website. If you want an autographed copy of the book, that is the only place to get one. If you want to order it somewhere else, it's also available on IndieBound and Bookshop, so you can support your local bookstore. If you are international, it's available on Book Depository, and they ship worldwide free, I think, other than England right now because of Brexit. Say is that I am on Instagram at Rugged Outdoors Woman, and I'm very accessible there. So if you want to chat with me, that's where to find me.
That's really awesome. Well, now that you're kind of settled in one spot for a little while at least, what's next for you?
Oh, well, I'm working on another book already, but I'm also planning to hike the Colorado Trail this year, which I'm pretty excited about.
Oh, awesome. I did that by bike back in 2015.
Oh, nice.
Cycling, but that was, oh my gosh, it was so hard. I'd much rather hike it. And that's this summer?
Hopefully in August.
Oh, cool. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, sweet. Well, Christine, this was so great to catch up with you after, 7 years. Crazy. I can't believe how much time has gone by.
Oh my gosh, I know.
All right. Well, thanks so much. And I'll talk to you soon.
Cool.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
Worried about mom or dad falling? The Symphony Medical Alert System from CVS Health helps make their home safer, even if you can't be there. Symphony works with voice activation or a care button they can opt to wear, along with smart sensors for coverage around the home. With 24/7 emergency response and an app to tie it all together, you can monitor your loved one's well-being for enhanced peace of mind. Terms and conditions apply. Learn more about Symphony at cvs.com/symphony or find it at your nearest CVS Health Hub.
Now more than ever, it's important for you and your family to enjoy the spaces you're in most often. Visit FergusonShowrooms.com to shop online or schedule a personalized consultation to meet with our experts at your local Ferguson Bath, Kitchen, and Lighting Gallery. Together we'll help you make the most of home and create a space you'll love to live in. Get started on your project and discover extraordinary products like the Quartz Luxe Undermount Kitchen Sink from LK.